Hello, this tutorial will show you how to open a case, enter required fields, and close a case in the Discrimination Complaint Tracking System, known as the DCTS. We will go step by step, entering the required information. You will learn how to open a case, add an incident, assign an investigator, enter complaints, and add parties. Next, we will upload files, add outcomes, and then complete 3 other required fields needed to close the case. First, I will go to the website. After entering my username and password and clicking Log In, the DCTS will email me a code to verify my user identity. This is called two-factor authentication and has been put in place for added security. The email will look similar to this screen. To log into the system, I will go to my email in order to get the verification code sent to me. I copy and paste or type in the received code and click Next. The DCTS will open the home page. Once in the DCTS, I will click the Cases tab. Now I will show you how to open a new case. I am currently logged in as an officer, but note that any user type is able to open a case. I will click on the New button and choose how I received the complaint from the record type pick list. In my mock complaint for this tutorial, I received the complaint when a complaint form was submitted to my office. I will select Internal from the pick list and select Next. A pop-up window will open so that I can add data needed to open my case in the DCTS. In the Case Information section, I will put my cursor into the department name field. The field will look up a department or sublocation assigned to my EEO office. I'll type in the first several letters of the department I want to find and press Enter on my keyboard. The Search Lookup window will open. I will click on the department listed in blue that I was looking for. In my made-up case, this is the Department of Flying Motor Vehicles where the complainant works. My selected department will display in the field. In the Date Received field, I click on the date icon to choose the date the complaint was received in my office. In my mock complaint, I received the complaint on October 18th, 2019. I'll click the arrow to go back and select the day of the month by clicking on it. The date I choose will display in the field. Next, I'll click on the drop-down arrow next to Case Accepted and choose Yes or No from the drop-down list. Click Yes if your case meets prima facie and will be investigated, and click No if it does not. If the case is not accepted, enter the reason you are not accepting the case in the Case Not Accepted Reason text field. In my mock case, the case is accepted. This is the information needed to open the case in the DCTS. I can continue to scroll down and enter more information, or I can come back and enter more information at a later time. When I click Save, the system creates my case, assigns a case number, and navigates to the case record on the Details subtab. If I come back at a later date to enter more information into the case, I will click the case number listed on the Case List view on the Cases tab, and the system will open up my case record. To enter my incident information and assign an investigator, I will select Edit on the top right corner of my case record. Now we will add the incident details. In the Incident Details section, I will enter the date of the incident, or if the date is unknown, I will click the Date Unknown checkbox. In my case, the incident occurred on September 5th, 2019. I will click the date icon again and choose the date of the incident. If the complaint contains multiple incident dates, I will enter the date of the most recent incident. Since my case was accepted, I will now scroll down to the Investigation section. When I place my cursor into the Assigned Investigator Lookup field, I will type the first few letters of the investigator I want to assign to the case for investigation and select Enter on my keyboard. In my case, I am assigning the case to an investigator called Peter Test. When I click his name, it is entered into the Assigned Investigator field. You are required to enter an investigator for an accepted case, so if I'm a small department and I am the EEO officer and investigator, I will search for my own name and select it to be entered into this field. If I'm an investigator and I have opened the case, the system will automatically assign me as the investigator of the case. The system will also auto-assign the date the new case was entered as the date the investigator was assigned. Now I will enter the date I am assigning the investigator. I will again click the date icon and select my date. In my case, I assigned Peter Test shortly after the complaint was received on October 21st, 2019. Investigators who open a case and officers of small agencies who will investigate the case will need to enter the date they intend to begin their investigation. If my department uses an external investigator, such as a law firm, to investigate the complaint, I will put my cursor into the External Investigator Lookup field and select a previously entered contact displayed, or add an outside contact by selecting New Contact. I will select Save to add the data to my case record. Two things happen when an officer or manager assign an internal investigator to the case. That investigator will receive an email notifying them that they have been assigned to the case to investigate. Also, they will now have access to view and edit the case, and the case will show up in their Cases list view. I will log out of the system and log back in as my investigator. When I click on the Cases tab, the list view defaults to Recently Viewed. To see this newly assigned case, I will have to change the list view to another list, since I have not yet viewed this case record. Here is the case I was just assigned to investigate. Even though I have been assigned as the case investigator, an EEO officer or manager may still view, edit, and enter data into the case. Now we will enter the case complaints. Select the Complaints subtab. Click the New button. Select your record type. In my mock case, there is an allegation of discrimination based on race and harassment based on race. First, I will select discrimination and click the Next button. To select my protected category, I will select the drop-down arrow, scroll down, and select Race. If there was only one complaint type, I would select Save, but since I need to enter another one, I will select Save and New. My second record type is harassment. I select harassment, and then I click Next. I select my protected category by again clicking the drop-down arrow, scrolling down to Race, and clicking on Race. Notice that this is where we will come back later and enter our outcomes for these complaints after the final report is completed. Since this is my final complaint for the case, I will save. Now I will show you how to add the parties involved in the complaint. In my mock internal complaint, I am required to add a complainant and a respondent. The complainant and respondent names are required for accepted cases, for all case types, but management inquiry and anonymous, where only the respondent is required. Select the Parties subtab. Click the New button. Select the case role. I will enter my complainant first, so from the drop-down menu, I select Complainant. Now I select my party type. In my mock case, my complainant is a state employee. For my party type, I select State Employee. I will click the Look Up State Employee button and type in part or the full last name into the last name field, and then click the search button. When the system finds the employee, I click on the name to highlight it and click the Submit button. Select information from the employee lookup populates my party fields. The other contact information on this page is optional. Next, I will enter my respondent, so I click Save and New. From the drop-down, I select Respondent. Now I select my party type. In my mock case, the complainant is a state employee. For the party type, I select State Employee and click the Look Up State Employee button. I type in part of the last name and click the Search button. When the system finds her, I select the name and click the Submit button. I save the record and am taken back to the Details subtab for my case. To confirm my two parties have been entered, I may click back on the Parties subtab to view and confirm the entries. Two fields are required to be uploaded for an accepted case: the complaint document and the final report. I have already scanned in these two documents and have saved them from my email to the DCTS file on my desktop. This area over here is called the chatter feed and is where you upload documents and add notes to your cases. When I place my cursor in the Share and Update text field, the Upload Document icon that looks like a paperclip appears below. When I click on the icon, the Select Files box will open, and I will select the Upload Files button to open my computer's File Explorer. I go to my desktop and find my scanned documents. If I want to rename the document something that makes more sense than the scanned name file, I can right-click the document and select Rename. I will rename this document Complaint Document. And this document Final Report. After I rename my documents appropriately, I can select one file or hold down the Control key on my keyboard and select multiple files. When I click Open, the files will appear in the chatter feed. This is important. The documents are not uploaded until I click the Share button. Now my files are uploaded. As we noted earlier, the outcomes are added to the complaints we entered earlier on the Complaints subtab. To select our outcomes, I will click on the down arrow next to each complaint I entered and select Edit to enter the outcome for each. In the Complaint Outcome section, I will click on the arrow and choose my outcome from the pick list. In my mock case, the allegation of discrimination based on race was substantiated. After I select Substantiated, I will click Save. I will do the same for the complaint of harassment based on race. Down arrow, Edit, then select Outcome from pick list. In my case, this allegation was unsubstantiated. When I save my record, both of my complaints list their corresponding outcomes. We have 3 more required fields in our case that we need to fill in before our case can be closed. The 3 fields are on the Details subtab, so after I click on the Details subtab, I will click the Edit button so the Edit screen pops up. In the Investigation section, I will click the checkbox confirming that the investigative report has been uploaded. I will click the Date icon to enter the investigation completion date for my mock case. My investigation was concluded on November 4th, 2019. All that remains is to scroll down to the Case Closure section and click the Complaint Document Has Been Uploaded checkbox. Then I save this required information. Wonderful! We have all the required information entered. Now we are ready to close the case. For an EEO investigator, the case should be reviewed for errors and completeness, and then the investigator will select the Submit for Approval button. If any required fields are missing, the system will display an error message detailing what information is missing. My mock case is ready, so I will click the Submit for Approval button. At this point, the case will lock and not allow edits. The EEO officer will receive an email to inform them that the case was submitted to them for closure approval. To show you this process, I will log out as the investigator user and log back in as the EEO officer. Because in my case, an investigator submitted the case to me for approval, the system's homepage will display the case in the Items to Approve section. The EEO officer will click the case number and will be taken to an Approval Request Detail screen. They will then review the case by clicking on the case number. After cases are closed, most fields are locked for editing, so it is important to complete a thorough review before closing. If the EEO officer determines the case is ready for closure, they will select Approve from the drop-down menu in the Approval History box. If the EEO officer identifies errors or missing information for the case, they will reject case closure and enter notes detailing what needs to be changed. If the approval is rejected, the investigator will receive an email notifying them that the case closure was rejected, and the investigator will need to make the changes and then resubmit the case for closure by once again clicking the Submit for Approval button. The EEO officer may also reassign the case to an EEO manager to decide if the case is ready for closure and finish the approval process. If I am an EEO officer in a small department and I have entered the case and assigned myself as an investigator, I will look over the case to make sure the data is correct, and then I can close the case without this approval process. To close the case, the EEO officer will select the Close Case button and then confirm that they want to close the case by again selecting Close Case. In my mock case, all of the data looked correct, so I will click Approve. Once case closure is approved, the case will automatically close. That's the end of our tutorial. I hope this helps you to open a case, enter required fields, and close a case in the DCTS. Thank you for watching.